Welcome to NeuroNoodle's Neurofeedback and Neuropsychology Podcast, featuring tech legend Jay Gunkelman. He's the man who has read well over 500,000 brain scans, and Dr. Marie Swingle, author of iMinds. Our goal is to provide information and promote options for better mental health. The NeuroNoodle Podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you.
Jay Gunkelman.
Morning.
How's Cali?
A little overcast. Nice cool weather for this time of year. We're done with the 104 degree days here. But it's a dry heat, they say in Phoenix. Not here. We're in the West Coast largest marsh area, and so it's not a dry heat.
It's a wet heat.
It's more like somebody tossed some water on the rocks in the sauna, you know.
So Jay, all the stuff that's going on in the world right now, I think people need a way to figure out how to relax. You got any ideas? Maybe start by breathing?
Start by probably turning off the news.
Yeah.
And attach yourself to local functions and do something to help people. There's a lot we can do within ourselves, but part of what we do to get ourselves right is to interact with others. The lack of interaction is, I think, very pathological, and it breeds the polemics that we see. And there are people that need help. You can pick the way you do. I mean, there's Meals on Wheels got defunded some, so they need some help. And there's local food banks. There's schools that need mentors. You can, if you look, you can find thousands of ways to serve your community. And if you serve your community and get your head out of the national stuff, which will take care of itself over time with lots of little local elections, you're going to be better off without the hyperbole of the news. There's tragedy left and right, but again, if you focus on that, you're amplifying it. Use your attentional skill set to focus on things that are local and real, and try to be helping others, not just focusing on yourself.
That being said, I'm still freaking out. How do I chill out, Jay?
Well, there's the working on yourself part of it is something that you need to do in order to serve others as well. If you're in a panic state and can't focus and can't have an affective attachment to another person, you're not going to be of much help. So you do need to focus on yourself as step one. And if you have panic, in fact, HRV, heart rate variability, which is paced breathing. Heart rate variability sounds like, oh my God, they're going to goof with my heart, They can make it more variable? Is that going to be a heart attack? What's going on, But variability is resilience. And so it's heart rate resilience or heart resilience. The breathing, slow-paced breathing, as you breathe in is slightly more sympathetic. Your heart rate speeds up slightly. And as you exhale and think, as you breathe in, it's like smelling a flower. And as you breathe out, it's like going, And you let go of that tension as you say, and you get your heart rate slowing down. And the variability from fast to slow, the amount of variability there is how resilient you are with respect to your heart function. If you wait for somebody to have no variability, it predicts imminent failure. If you have no heart rate variability, breathing in and out, your regulatory system has failed. You're likely to have a heart attack. So anyway, relax physically, but breathe slow. 6 breaths a minute is what they generally say. You can get it more custom if you go and look with fancy equipment, but 6 breaths, that's one every 10 seconds. If it's 4 in and 6 out, that's a good amount because the relaxing exhalation exceeding the briefer inhalation sympathetic activation. They have to balance because you have to breathe in and out, but how you pace that can actually intervene in a panic attack. You have control over your breath. Take control over it. Slow your breathing down, take a couple of deep cleansing breaths, but then slow your breathing down. Try to get 4 seconds in and 6 seconds out. It's easy to get that. If you practice, again, and have equipment, you can actually pick a custom frequency that's perfectly tuned to your nervous system.
Jay, I remember back in the day following my sister around the clinic, and there was a spot that she would put the sensor on, like right on the inside of the eyeball there. What to get somebody to chill out?
And
What am I talking about?
and that was on the right side as well. That's called an FPO2, and it's a spot that people were putting the electrode. You can actually do a fancier set of electrodes and actually define the location that they were trying to hit. But they were trying to actually turn on parts of the brain that can turn off other parts of the brain. Your right frontal lobe is able to control expression of emotion and impulses. So you can stifle it, as Archie Bunker might say.
Archie.
We're hanging out together, and you say something, I think, "God damn it, Pete, I'm gonna whap you," and then I think, well, geez, Pete's bigger than I am. If I whap Pete, Pete might whap me. Maybe my right frontal lobe says, "Don't whap Pete, you fool," So this area of your brain does have the ability to inhibit impulses and emotions, and the ability to inhibit fear and anxiety. So the FPO2 was an attempt to get into the frontal lobe's ability to inhibit the amygdala and the affect. Now, the insula and amygdala are hooked together. The frontal lobe in various locations are all hooked into that network. The lateral frontal is hooked into the network as well. The FPO2 was picked theoretically and as a protocol for a symptom as opposed to being driven by assessment. And, our field went a long ways before there was even the ability to do assessment. So we have to honor the symptom-driven protocol, but we have to realize that sometimes looking before you actually apply an approach ends up being beneficial as well. The symptoms come up with the DSM, but that doesn't predict therapeutic intervention exactly, So looking before you treat is a real good idea. There was a recent paper that reviewed medication failure. You go to your psychiatrist and say, "Doc, it's not right somehow." When doc gives you something, and they make a guess. Oh, you're a this or you're a that. They come up with the DSM category and they give you a med for that. And it doesn't actually get predicted accurately by the DSM, but they'll give you something. It might work, it might not. If it fails, they'll try something else, and that might fail or it might work, but try it, you might like it. It's the Mikey approach. Give it to Mikey. He likes everything, but you literally can predict based on the EEG that the medications are likely to fail. And if you're a psychiatrist and you've given somebody a med that you've made a good, honest guess and it didn't work, it's a good idea to actually examine the organ that you're treating at that point, because there are patterns that predict medication failure that do have positive interventions available. The most predictive was focal slowing. Doc, something's not right. Well, the doc doesn't guess. He's got some lesion or a focal slowing is a local pathology. This isn't a psych problem. This is an organic pathology. And they're going to guess depression or anxiety or OCD or bipolar. They're going to guess something, but you got a focal slow wave. And that has to be treated locally, not with a pharma for the whole brain. It's a local problem. If you treat it effectively here, everything else is going to be overdone. Yeah, and so it's a high predictor, close to 50%. And the article male and female and age ranges, but it's about a 50% of the time of failure is predicted by that. Now, the other things are spindling excess beta spindles. That predicts medication failure. Epileptiform content that's unexpected, that predicts medication failure. And then there's a low voltage slow EEG, which is actually a toxic or metabolic problem, and that predicts medication failure. You know, you think you're a psych problem, but it's actually a metabolic or a toxic issue. So if you don't treat them effectively with your first guess, please at that point at least look, perhaps even look before you leap. My grandmother told me, don't dive into the water unless you know what's under the surface. She was right. And it wasn't just about hitting something with your head in the water. I mean, you know, it's time to like pull aside the cloudiness and see what's really there, and then know what you're diving into and with what. You can match very carefully, based on the EEG, the neurochemistry that you need to be muddling with. So, you know, look before you leap. And that paper was a reprint of a 2014 paper where we first presented those findings. And this is a finer gradation. And the journal in the first place didn't allow a whole bunch of pictures of EEG because it was Ron Swatsina, Jerry Kozlowski, and Jay Tarnow, no electroencephalographers. But in the current paper, Rusty Turner, an epileptologist, is present. So, you know, they actually put in the samples of the EEG to show the patterns, and did, again, a bigger chart showing the breakout based on sex and age and percent failure. So their conclusion is basically look before you leap. I mean, Grandma was right. She really was.
So you're looking at the raw data, Jay. What are you going to look for? I don't know. I'm pointing out the spot in the eyeball. Like what?
Is this the Three Stooges fix?
Yeah.
No.
No.
You know, if you're symptomatically thinking that they've got anxiety and PTSD, and you're intervening with that symptomatic approach, if you're going to be looking at the EEG as opposed to just treating it symptomatically with protocols that have been designed for it. Now, the protocols have some efficacy or they wouldn't be still being done. A protocol du jour comes up all the time, and people try it, and if it works, it'll stick around. If it doesn't really work, it'll kind of fade away. And these FPO2s and the frontotemporal work that's been being done has had enough of a positive effect that it's actually carved out a niche in trauma work. So, we could just do the symptomatically driven approach. But if we look with the EEG, what do you see? If there's PTSD or anxiety, basically at that point, if the eyes are open, what we expect to see because the amygdala, when it's activated with a primary emotion, changes the thalamic gating, and a sensory input gets through quicker and bigger. Our systems are jumpy. If we're anxious and nervous and somebody taps you on the shoulder, you jump up off the floor. It's not just a what. This is a real jump. Well, that jumpiness of the nervous system is seen as the early arrival of sensory information on the cortex. In the EEG eyes open, we see lambda waves events. They're event-related potentials anytime you focus your eye on something. And people with anxiety are visually hypervigilant. So we expect to see lambda, 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 which is a positive, downgoing, sharp component. It's a triphasic wave, up, down, with a downbeat positivity being sharp. And it's just a P100 of a visual event-related potential. It's, again, when they focus on something with their eyes, that creates an event-related potential, and it creates a lambda wave at the back of the head, a P100 ERP wave. Now, normally you have to average a bunch of ERPs together to see any wave at all. But again, given the odd effect of the excess emotion in the amygdala, you get a jacked up thalamus and a gigantic wave. So we actually see individual ERP waves at the back of the head. So that's a unique circumstance. When you see that, you know somebody's got an amygdala that's really cranked up. Or you may have a kid watching a video. Gotta check. They're going to be watching and watching and watching and watching and watching. And it's the same thing. There's nothing abnormal about lambda. Lambda is just visual processing. If you're hypervigilant and you're not just watching a TV screen, and they do put kids in front of a TV screen sometimes to get them to cooperate well enough to get an EEG recorded. If you see a lot of lambda, ask. So if you close the eyes, what changes? Well, closing the eyes turns on the default mode network. And the default mode network ends up having special nodes. Welcome, welcome.
Hey, I thought you were supposed to be talking about telling stories about me. You're getting
well, when you said you'd be late, I teased you and I said, well, you're not here. We're going to be telling stories about you. But I was lying.
Default mode is more important.
We're talking about how to chill out, Dr. Marie.
Got it.
And we were just talking about PTSD. FPO2 is a symptom driven, and what you see in a Q includes lambda with eyes open for visual hypervigilance, or a kid watching a video while they're being recorded. So you got to watch out for that. But when you get the eyes closed, you turn on the default mode network. And in the default mode network, the posterior cingulate, anterior cingulate, and the temporal-parietal junctions on either side are part of this default mode. It's actually active. PZ to the left happens, then PZ to the right happens, and these are about 80-something milliseconds, and alpha and beta is happening in these networks. So it checks from PZ to the left temporal-parietal junction, then to the right, then goes to the front, but nothing comes back. And then PZ happens all by itself. So this rapid flip-flopping is the resting state network in the fMRI. They think it's a default, the brain doing nothing. The brain's busy, still twiddling its thumbs,
Well, if the brain did nothing, we'd be dead. Kind of
simple. But if you're trying to chill out and you're meditating, don't you want your brain to be doing nothing then?
Well, when you look at the default mode network in somebody that has PTSD, the right hemispheric spot in the T6 is the old nomenclature, the 1020 nomenclature. It's P8. It's actually on the parietal side of the temporal parietal junction. So calling it T6 was really a lie. It really wasn't in the temporal lobe, on the parietal side of the temporal parietal junction. It still reflects the posterior temporal limbic structures and the perihippocampus and all that kind of stuff. So, it hasn't changed what it means, but the name has been changed to align with the 10-10 system, which is for people that have even more electrodes on their head. So the names wouldn't have to shift between the systems. The modified nomenclature was supposed to be accepted about 20 years ago, but the neurofeedback field is really kind of dragging their butt for changing their nomenclature to the 10-10. You still get a lot of the T3, T4, T5, T6 in papers that you see done within the neurofeedback world. But try to publish in a major journal nowadays. You've got to have the modified nomenclature. So, update your thoughts and kind of, it's like the U.S. We should have gone to the metric system when I was in junior high. It was in the Weekly Reader. They said we were going to go to the metric system. I was going, all right, it finally makes some sense, No, you still got to, how many ounces? And, anyway, in the right temporal area, in PTSD and anxiety, you see an excess of the alpha amplitude. And perhaps if it had childhood experience disturbances, stuff can get encoded in some slower frequencies as well. But you see that pathology coming out of that right parietal temporal junction. And that's some of the EEG correlates of the PTSD and anxiety stuff. Now, anterior cingulate is also involved in this. That's your distress network. And it can be a thalamocortical dysrhythmia representing distress.
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the show and want to help us keep it going, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support helps improve the content and brings on great guests and grow the show. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/NeuroNoodle. But hey, if supporting financially isn't in the cards right now, no worries. You can still help us out for free by liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode. It really makes a difference and helps more people find the show. If we've earned it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. The NeuroNoodle Podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you.
So that's another thing entirely.
Well, yes and no. They're all kind of interrelated. I think that's one of the reasons when, people say, what specific region? I always say, look at specific regions, look at what I call constellations, obviously networks. Yeah, but you need big and little picture. And that's something I find kind of cool that we always, we get caught in getting comfortable with seeing one phenotype or one signature and forget to peek around the corner. So,
yeah. Well, yeah, you can get really good at one thing. You got one tool at that point, and if you've got a person and they need a different tool, they either need to go to somebody else or you need to get more tools. And there's lots of kinds of approaches in neurofeedback. The term neurofeedback is like the term medication.
yeah.
Does medication work?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does neurofeedback work? Neurofeedback of what kind, for what purpose, where, how long? What was it actually a neurofeedback device, or was it just a manufacturer advertising that it's a neurofeedback device, but it's really not?
Hey, you're
there's
on my soapbox. That's usually.
Well, I'll step aside.
We'll dance up there together. Yeah.
So.
But I mean, the other thing, don't always bring a sledgehammer for a little finishing nail as well. I think that's a big one. And, we've talked about insurance, cost. That's always a big one. And I've said this many times. I reference myself as a KISS therapist. Keep it simple, silly. Okay. Look for the simplest solution first. And then if you don't get your answers, then you can escalate into more sophisticated, more expensive, more time-consuming scanning, etc. Now, if somebody has no issue with time and no issue with finances, go for it. But that's
Yeah.
not the average person that crosses my threshold.
And Pete and I were just discussing the paper that of medication failure prediction that basically chastises the doctor. If your first guess works, great. If it doesn't, start time to lift the hood, look at what's going on, and look to see what's really the underlying pathophysiology that had an assumption that you were treating.
I have a lexical contradiction there. My issue here is the word guess. You never guess anything, right? You have a suspicion, you semi-profile, and then you confirm.
Yeah, well,
They're simple
if
and
you're
stupid.
if you're operating based on the DSM,
Okay.
it's a guess.
Yeah, okay.
And it's an educated guess, but it's not. There's no predictive validity, and they admit that. So, and people say, well, we won't use the DSM, we'll use the ICD's codes. It's just a different system, the same thing. It's all symptom-driven guessing as to what you've got, and it gives you a category, but it doesn't predict how to treat. The QEEG
category already by themselves.
The EEG QEEG is quite often critiqued as not being diagnostically specific, and I say, so what? It's prognostically significant, and that's really it tells you how to treat effectively. And that's really what you want. I don't care what you call me, treat me, So anyway, that's my soapbox.
No, I'm right there with you. Absolutely right there with you. Actually, some kind of good news, I think. It came up on our live chat yesterday. Josh mentioned that many of the neurologists and MDs in his region, when they get the really flashy, pretty Q report, they're starting to chuck it in the garbage because they know it's all computer generated and might not be artifacted properly, et cetera, et cetera. So that was an interesting twist.
I very seldom have any difficulty if I'm actually able to discuss stuff directly with a neurologist or epileptologist and go through the data directly with them. I generally don't have any difficulty at that point.
Well, Jay, that's you. I'm really going to interrupt. You're a different class.
Yeah, but I'm a tech. Yeah. I have the credentials of a secretary sitting at the desk typing. I mean, my credentials are basically my experience, and there's nobody in the world that's seen more EEGs than me, and that's my credential. And and you might say, well, it doesn't matter how many you've seen, you only got one eye anyway, so.
I'm just calling you Mr. Humble. No, I was just referencing individuals who essentially buy the equipment, hook somebody up, press a button, press report, and that's what they did. That's what I was referencing. So the fact that
I get asked quite often to what would you do for somebody with this data, and they send me the QEEG data, and that's step 2. I don't take step 2 without step 1. If I don't have the raw EEG, I don't know what the hell this is. Show this to somebody who operates that way, and that's what you've got. If you don't have the raw EEG, I won't even look at your Q.
Yeah.
So, and that's the same thing when I was approached for the consciousness recovery from coma. They sent me the QEEG data, and I said, well, I won't even look at this. Send me the EEGs. And it's only looking at the EEGs that I was able to identify coma from functional brain because of the dynamics, which is temporal dynamics and phase and all that's lost in the Q. So, you can't take step 2 before you take step 1, and not make a mistake at some point, and sometimes a critical mistake.
Yeah.
The epileptiform burst, the one burst was artifacted out by the machine learning algorithm that didn't know what it was doing, You got to train those little suckers. 2 days ago, I was shown a machine learning pipeline de-artifacted EEG,
Mhm.
and we flipped through, and about 6 seconds in, there's this funny stuff up front, slow, and I said, okay, show me the raw data without any correction. There's an eye blink at that point. They had taken out vertical and lateral eye blinks, but the subtle lateral wasn't taken out. It's a separate component. And and there's also convergent and divergence of the eye will be in phase, F7, F8 in phase. So that there are eye movement components that are missed by some people. And there is no automated artifacting that can be run without a babysitter. You've got to manage it. I did publish a paper on automated real-time de-artifacting of eye movement and muscle off of the EEG that operates in real time. And that was very complex Riemann geometry, and I mean, this was published in the International Journal of Psychophysiology, and it was done with Marco Congito and the group Mensa Mencia in France, and also the Korean group in South Korea, the iSync group. So it was an international group that came together and published this about real-time de-artifacting.
Mhm.
It can be done for specific kinds of artifact, like eye movement and muscle, but you're going to end up with other kinds of artifacts that you have to be dealt with as well. And again, if you're doing after the fact cleanup, there's no automated pipeline that doesn't need a babysitter.
Very frequently, it's not artifact. You said that one, spike, but sometimes they're really cool patterns. They're not artifact. Sometimes you don't know what they are, but they're not artifact. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when you need to have a group of people that have experience that you can toss an odd finding in and find out, oh, that's a 6 per second phantom spike and wave, a controversial pattern, but it's a known pattern. It's just one you hadn't seen before. Yeah, so there's a lot of them. Yeah, psychomotor variants. The mid-temporal sharp slow transients. Lots of episodic things.
Dr. Marie, we started this off by talking about people are freaking out. They're watching the news too much. And what things can we do to chill out? And what do you tell people to do?
Well, stop feeding the beast within and outside. I mean, it's kind of simple. But news now it's an attention economy. You know, if you miss the one blip, to a certain extent, you've missed it. But then they retell the story a gazillion times with a different person, a different location. It's never ending, and we watch and we watch and we watch because we fear that we're going to miss that subtle or very important piece of new knowledge. I would say watch the news anywhere from once a week to once a day. I wouldn't, watch anymore and pick, I'd say online is the worst, and that's a generational thing. Most young adults do not watch a quote unquote show, or they do not watch a synopsis. They watch feeds as they come in. The accuracy is always being updated. So essentially, you just get these excitatory reactions constantly, and you get yourself in a state of hyperarousal, and it can feed into baseline anxiety. It's bad news, no pun intended. It's just bad news. The other, I mean, I know sometimes we go out of a brain here to politics. But I also think that the news media should bear some responsibility here as well, meaning they don't show the story or they don't predict a story until they really know what's going on. But then they'd have 4 hours of nothing to do and no hype to make, right? So,
So,
Well,
what color journalism sells better, yellow or white?
red, bright, 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 danger, danger, red. I mean, we all know it.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's a very, very sad truth.
so I turn off the news. What do? Breathe? Like what I need some help. I'm hyperventilating.
Take a lovely walk. You're not going to be able to read at that point because you're too make a nice dinner, make love with your partner, life, right? Enjoy life.
And serve others.
Sure.
Yes.
You have to have communication. You can't get into your own head and just sit there, and actually serving others in some way is one of the best ways to get out of your head and into something that's real, not something contrived and politicized. So
Gratitude and giving, um, they the health benefits are through the roof.
yeah,
Everybody thinks that you get by taking. You really receive a lot actually by
All right, none
giving.
of that's working. Is there like an app out there? Like I want to get calm. Do you know? But
Yes,
seriously,
in
how does
fact, there
that
are
work?
yes,
there are apps out there.
yeah. There's my BrainCalm app, um, and
Well,
I've
how is that making me calm? I turned off the news. I'm still freaking out. What do I
yeah.
do?
Well, we've combined HRV, heart rate variability, okay, which does have quieting properties, and we've combined that with traditional colored noise, okay, so pink or brown. Every once in a while we use white, but that tends to be more for that's for the focus. And we have our trademark harmonics that we layer and blend, and that combination quiets the anterior cingulate, it quiets the back of the brain, but it doesn't affect the low high alpha. So it doesn't dull you, it doesn't sedate, it quiets. And we use that with our clients, as home protocols. So people do it 10 minutes a day, every day in between treatments. But it's also a great potentiator, meaning they do it 10 minutes before the neurotherapy. And uh, we have the data. I mean, data. We have all the data. There's one for, situation where clinicians have to pay attention. It tends to be females with extreme histories of trauma, wherein successfully quieting is associated with danger, threat. And the example here is pediatric sexual assault. So if you're a, a, a more mature female now who essentially was assaulted in her bed or molested in her bed in the evenings, a spot where supposed to be calm and sleep was positive, that quiet is associated with danger. So you have to be really, really careful about abreactions. But that, qualified therapists know this.
Yeah.
And
Alpha theta would be a good practice with somebody who has that kind of an experience because
yeah,
the earlier life experiences are embedded in slower,
there you go.
they're encoded in frequencies that are available at the time. And if it was earlier in your life, you don't even have alpha.
Yeah, yeah,
But you have to have that alpha present as an adult presence to experience the unconscious, preconscious experience. The alpha theta crossovers end up allowing you to access it with an adult present
yeah,
and deal with it and actually work it out. Uh, uh,
yeah. So yeah, anyways, we're really proud of it. And but the subjective reports are fantastic, and the concrete objective data is extremely powerful. And anybody who wants to see it, I'm absolutely transparent. It's up there, right? So.
What is the data saying? Before, after? Like I was freaking out. Now I'm not anymore.
Well, no, we do the pre-post, right? And we get anywhere from a 2% to a 60% change, in some of the ratios and the amplitudes. I mean, it's 2% is not statistically significant, but it's going in the right direction. And then we get these extremely powerful reactions. And we're talking about multiple mechanisms of action. So that's where, if it brings down beta in the back or brings up theta or does both, same thing with bringing down gamma or up gamma or beta up or down, and then the alpha. So it captures one or the other, and that's and sometimes all.
And it's one thing to track symptom. I mean, I was panicky and now I'm not panicky, but you're also showing physiological change contingent to the type of training you did.
Yeah. That's where the breath rate really, really comes in, getting the resonance frequency breathing while you're doing the entrainment with the harmonics in the package of quieting colored noise, right? So yeah, it's powerful.
I'm still freaking out. Maybe I need a beer in somewhere over by Oakland. Got any ideas, Jay?
If you're wandering around the neighborhood over here in Suisun City, California, October 8th, starting about 5 o'clock, stop in at the Solano County Yacht Club here in Suisun, and they have a full service bar. I'm sure we can take care of you, Pete. The next 3 days after that, actually have an EEG meeting, which you can attend and get 15 CE units. Unfortunately, it's sold out. It's absolutely sold out. But
wonderful.
The live stream attendance can get the CEs as well, but you have to view it live on the live stream. You'll get the recordings, but to get the CEs, you have to be able to check in and out like you were there, signing in and out on a sheet. So you have to end up popping up and showing that you're actually there. We'll look at people that are actually there in the Zoom to watch it live, and those people will be able to get CE credits for the talks that they attend. So it's a lot of administrative extra work, but we've got students that volunteer for things. Now, they get helped a little bit with popping into the meeting and stuff, but you know me, I'm a sucker for the students. There's nothing beneath me when it comes to supporting the students, including this year, probably auctioning off something that's been growing for a while. And over the years, $24,625 has been raised by the shearing of this. It's a low overhead donation.
Isn't it an underhead?
So,
And
in Australia, they actually pasted what they shaved off onto a wig head, like you do for measuring for the electrodes. And they sold that the next year for $500. And I'm thinking,
It's a weird artifact.
Just burn that. That needed a blowtorch. It didn't need anything else. Anyway, no accounting for taste. Maybe they thought they could clone the DNA. I don't know.
All right, so we got the app, we got Suisun City, and then every Wednesday, like last night, Dr. Marie, Jay, Anthony Ramos, Joshua Moore, we all get together and we let our viewers and listeners decide the content. They ask the questions and then we answer. Every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central or 4 p.m. Pacific. Don't be shy.
One of the topics last night could have been the slow cortical potential training for autism, which was shown to be effective. They worked at the anterior cingulate, the FCZ, and that their training is basically to make you voluntarily make it go up and down and up and down and up and down until you can control it. And at that point, they'll tell you whether on or off, electronegative or electropositive. That's all you're doing, going electronegative, electropositive, electronegative, electropositive. And they gain control over the anterior cingulate, which is, well, it's one of the more crucial locations. As far as rich club hubs, that's like the king rich club hub. If you've got pathology, it's most likely involved. So.
Well, it's the rigidity, the infamous rigidity that you see in most individuals on the spectrum that doesn't work for them and the individuals around them. So being able to get some pliability in that, whoa, it's wonderful.
Yeah, and it's controlling the salience network, which can flip between resting state and engage. So it's teaching direct control of a crucial hub, but they've got really good experimental controls. This is academic Europe, not a vendor trying to sell you shit. So you can actually believe what's coming out of there, and it's a respectable group. Again, it's not vendor driven.
So when in doubt, chill out. Get the app from Dr. Marie, come to Suisun City in about a month, or join us every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Pacific. Everybody, thank you for showing up. Have a great weekend, all.
Enjoy. Good to see you, Pete. We'll catch you in Suisun.
Or next
Bye-bye.
week. Bye, guys.
Hey, everyone. If you're enjoying the show and want to help us keep it going, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support helps improve the content and brings on great guests and grow the show. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/NeuroNoodle. But hey, if supporting financially isn't in the cards right now, no worries. You can still help us out for free by liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode. It really makes a difference and helps more people find the show. If we've earned it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. The NeuroNoodle Podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you. Hey everyone, here's a quick message from our good old buddy Joshua Moore at Alternative Behavioral Therapy.
I'm preparing to do an introduction to QEEG phenotypes. This is my first workshop on the topic, and this is just the introductory overview of the project. This is going to be very, very basic. So let's review each phenotype. We're just going to go through them one by one. If you look at the DSM-1, 2, or 3, and you look at the first chapter, it actually acknowledges that the DSM in mental health is just, quote, a descriptive adaptation, unquote. We're going to customize the interventions and tailor them to the individual's brain activity, not just applying the treatments or trainings to the individual's phenotype and maybe even their variants, but also customizing the protocols themselves to fit that person's individual unique frequency patterns. Maybe a dozen ways to have excessive energy in your nervous system, and then there's an infinite amount of ways to relate poorly to that excessive energy, which means that there is a lot of variations in what someone might call anxiety. And that doesn't mean that we're talking about the same thing when we're talking about anxiety. So complicated stuff. But when we look at a brain map, we get some basis in which we can start talking about what is this energy. Then we have to go to the client. We have to start talking to the client about what is your association to this specific kind of energy that I can see now. Then we get to care about things that insurance doesn't restrict us on. We get to care about like the person in a broader way. 85% improvement in mental health report following pairing a medication with a specific phenotype. Geez. Okay, have you seen 85% in any mental health studies for any medication? I'm going to be going over a whole bunch of different types of tests, assessments and things that can be used that have things called neurocorrelates, which you saw some of those already, better success outcomes. That's what we really want. We need better predictive power. We need better individualization. That's what we want.